Hello and welcome. As part of our series on Minnesota leaders, I'm talking tonight with a fascinating woman with a very important career. Her name is Lois A. Herman. Lois is a part-time Minnesotan and she lives in Italy the rest of the year. She is the founder and the coordinator of the Women's UN Report Network. I'm going to let her describe what this network, this program does. But first, welcome.
Thank you, Mary.
It's great to have you on. We were going to tape this show back in late November, and I couldn't do it, so I'm grateful that this is working out. Well, you were just in Geneva at a UN conference.
United Nations Human Rights Council.
Were there any things that came out of that council that were things you'd love to share with our viewers right now, hot off the press?
The UN Human Rights Program is centered in Geneva, the High Commissioner for Human Rights. It's one of the central areas you can bring forward issues of, in our case, women and girls, and the special rapporteurs, who are the independent experts, give their reports. So it's an exceedingly important place. And WUNRN organized two major events, and
WUNRN is
the Women's UN Report Network.
Right.
But I would like to also say, Mary, that WUNRN, meaning the Women's UN Report Network, was founded on a UN study, the first and only one of its kind, on the status of women, religion or belief, and traditions.
And what year was it founded?
The report was commissioned by Mary Robinson, who was then High Commissioner for Human Rights. It was in 2003.
Okay.
And essentially we are in now our 11th year. And this report was so significant that those leaders in Geneva who knew me asked me if I would try to put together a program that would give life to this study. Otherwise, it could just sit on the shelf.
Just another study.
Yes, indeed. And so I came back and formed an advisory committee of women leaders in many parts of the world, including Minnesota, but mostly from different regions of the world who had essentially been legends in the women's movement. And out of that was the idea that we should create a strong communication vehicle that would be available to women and girls everywhere, and men and boys if they were interested, and that it should be both grassroots and high level. It would be very serious, it would be academic, and it would be highly respected. And in the beginning, we started out with maybe 50 people, and it grew exponentially. It really amazes me how this program has grown. And it's not where you're based that's important, because it's like people call me the first lady of the internet. They don't know where I am, but they know what I do and the people who work with me.
And what you do, and I want you to correct me or to expound on what I say, is to bring awareness to a lot of the really horrific things that are going on in the whole world, that happen to children, that happen to their mothers, happen to women and girls.
I think it's important to say that we look at not only the tragedies, but also the goodness, and to celebrate best practices and momentum forward, and learning better ways in which to advocate and to be active on these issues. It's hard to impact social change on a national level and have it spread around the world. So going particularly on a global internet resource, and then to go to the UN, gives us multifaceted leverage in order to say, yes, this is an issue that needs to be addressed. I was going to tell you that if you want to to say what is WUNRN in a sentence, we are a research program, information, and research on issues of women and girls all over the world, every day.
And memos are sent out every day.
Yes.
But I am wondering how you pick the countries, how you pick the issues. Tell us some of the issues that you are looking at and bringing to awareness.
Okay, I think that comes with experience. It comes with building solid relationships with governments, academia, media, foundations, NGOs, religions, associations, foundations, that over a period of years, they look to you with a certain amount of respect and as a resource. Our website has a search organ, and you can enter a phrase, let's say honor killings, and you will see a wealth of information. Many of the people who follow WUNRN regularly are students or professors who use the resources we present in their teaching, in their studies.
So you are really disseminating important information to important people who can share it with their countries, with their organizations. You've looked at malnutrition. You've looked at,
I will give you some examples.
Yeah, give us some more examples.
Afghanistan is a country that is highly visible right now. They're approaching another election. They've been very turbulent. There's been a lot of violence against women, marginalization of women, a great deal of difference between Kabul and the rural areas, a lot of conflict. And so I'll give you examples of some of the issues that we look at there and create activity and actions. And we've had several panels at the UN. One is it forced marriage and child marriage. Absolutely a tragedy. And not just child marriage, but a girl child, will be sold by her father in order to pay a drug debt.
She might be 11 years old.
Or younger.
Or younger.
Or younger. And we are not used to seeing this happen where a girl is commodified. She's looked at as a liability. Another would be widows. Whenever you have conflict, there are many women who are widows. And widows in Afghanistan usually are desperately poor. They are suffering from lack of social services.
Discriminated against.
Indeed, and often,
ways.
As in India, the woman is looked at as maybe someone who caused her husband's death. We call that inauspiciousness. Okay, violence, enormous problem, and it's not vocalized a lot. If you are abused by your husband and you were a young bride, possibly in a polygamous family, so you can imagine how the first wife feels when the husband brings in a girl child bride as the second wife or the third wife. But when there is violence, especially in the family, then the girl or the woman will be told, don't say anything. And so she may be physically hurt so long that she runs away. And then there's no one for her. There's been a lack of women's shelters. Now there's some, but still there are not ever enough. And also sometimes she'll go to a prison because she'll say, I'm afraid, and there she'll feel safe.
So she may stay there the rest of her life, Lois?
And it's possible. It's possible, yes.
We have a photo that you brought of women widows in India.
Yes.
And I think we'll just hold this up and we'll have it inserted later, but it shows in kind of a long shot, but it shows women just sitting on the curb.
Yes. WUNRN actually took this photograph. And our first conference, international conference, was in India and on the subject of widows, because India has more widows than any other country in the world. And most of them are poor. And there is a town called Vrindavan where the widows tend to congregate, and they will sit in a religious institution like a parish house, and they'll sing so that people will bring rice, so they'll have something to eat. And even if they have a pension, members of the family may take it. We can't imagine that in our country. We have a respect and a dignity as people age. But a widow has no real place in the Indian society, and that has continued a long time. There have been movies made about that. And hopefully, by the way, Mary, you could have a child widow, a girl who's married early in her life, and then when she's a teenager, she becomes a widow. So she has to wear white, and she is put out of the family because she's considered bad luck. And she may spend in all of her life as a widow, as an impoverished, marginalized widow. And I saw such women in their 90s.
And you and I have both been widows, so we know what it's like to be a widow in our culture. Some of the countries Afghanistan has terrible things going on. Some of the other countries that have things that just break your heart, the female mutilation of genitalia.
Yes.
Is it mostly going on in Africa, but also Asia?
It's going on in other countries too, like Iraq. I mean, it goes on. You would be amazed at how many countries that FGM occurs. And it's often very hidden. But there is the belief system that unless a girl is cut or circumcised, she will not be worthy of marriage.
Now, I know this picture is hard for people to look at. And if you look closely, viewers, or you see that the person with the razor blade, it's a very medical procedure, it looks like, the way it's done. Is that true?
That is true.
All over?
That is true. But we live in the United States, and we live in Minnesota. And Minnesota has the largest Somali population in the United States. And in Somalia, over 90% of the young women are experiencing female genital mutilation. And there may be a law that says you cannot do, but it will happen in secret. In countries like UK, in Great Britain, they will fly in a circumciser, a woman practitioner, who will do the cutting and then go back because it's against the law. But I live in Italy, and it was now she's been foreign minister, but she was a senator, and Emma Bonino helped bring this issue forward and create a resolution that was passed by the UN General Assembly in the past year. And this is leverage.
So there are good things
There
happening.
are good things that are happening, and young girls are speaking up more. But if you have a little girl who's 5 years old, and she's told she's going to a birthday party, and she's taken by her mother and her grandmother into a house, and then the door is closed, and this is what comes with it. But
one's trust would forever be gone, wouldn't it? A lot of things I've read point to culture more than religion in terms of why things like this are happening and why they're allowed. And when you're talking about changing culture or changing religion,
it's a long
that's a huge process.
But when you talk about FGM, for example, it's often grandma who says, it's time, we must cut this girl.
So it's so ingrained in their whole family system, right?
But also it can be political. And the women who are the circumcisers, the cutters, often have a lot of political power. So, there are many dynamics that are happening. Egypt is another country where there is a high rate of female genital mutilation. You would maybe be surprised about that. In Kurdish communities, I mean, Indonesia, I don't mean to cite particular areas, but it's happening. And it's something that is so remote in the West, but what you're seeing now is with migration. With immigrants
sure.
coming, they bring their traditions, their culture, their value
Good
system.
and bad.
Yes, that's very true, very true.
Do you think via your group, do you feel that raising awareness is the most important thing you can do?
Yes, information is power.
Information
But
is
the kind
power.
of information that shows statistics or it shows the medical answers behind this, such as you pointed out with the picture and the non-sterile instruments. There are also women survivors who have written books or spoken up and said, this was a tragedy in my life. I never felt really like a woman after that. And patriarchy, men will say that this should happen. It doesn't happen to them.
Right.
I only want a woman who's been cut. Why? She won't stray, you know, she will stay. She will be easier to manage.
So very patriarchal attitudes behind a lot of these horrible things. Do you think that the UN as a body has the kind of power that can make a difference, or are you working through the UN to reach other leaders primarily?
The UN is a platform in a sense. There is no other mechanism that draws almost all the countries in the world.
So a platform, that's a good
So
word.
working with leaders in the UN system, you're able to add force to power. As an example, we just did a panel on acid attacks at the United Nations. I have a horrific picture. And the UN Special Rapporteur on Torture gave a very powerful statement. We sent this all over the world, and it could be used from high level to grassroots as a pressure on legislation in countries. But again, it's the monitoring that matters, Mary. You can have a law, but unless there is some way of monitoring it.
Right, the law would be empty. Tell us, when we look at this photo on the screen, what she's been burned with acid.
Yes, yes. I'll give a scenario of how this happens.
Why would that happen to her?
I'll preface this by saying that we were able to bring to the panel we did in Geneva, and we did also in New York at the Commission on the Status of Women, women who had been burned, who were victims of acid attacks, and many people had never seen them before. I mean, it's a hard thing to look at a woman who has been really burned for life. The reasons why this happens are often women who reject men for one way or another.
So they're
a young
punished.
man who wants to marry a woman and she says, no. He will say, if I can't have you, no one will. Also, this can happen as a family, as an attack on a family. Let's say there's an argument between families. This can be one way in which they manifest it. A husband who has a wife he is not so happy with, and he wants a different wife, he will throw acid. And they've made laws on acid. Bangladesh is one country where there are
that's
lots.
Where this photo comes from, correct?
Right, but look at Pakistan, look at India. We've had it in the United States. We've had it in Canada. It's happened in countries in Africa, also in the United Kingdom. It essentially makes this woman a victim for life. She can have surgeries. It's so hard because acid eats the skin, and women die. And we also know that some women self-immolate by burning themselves because they're so miserable or so unhappy or so victimized or abused. And as an example, in Afghanistan, this self-immolation is a social issue.
Do you think that human rights have been discussed by our leaders here in our country in terms of what can we as a country do to ensure human rights are honored in other countries? Do you think we have much clout, in a sense, as a country, as the United States, to affect what's going on in other countries?
It varies. It varies. There's a lot of feeling of what you would call sovereignty, and that a country will say, we have our rights, this is our power, and we don't want to be finger pointed as the country in which honor crimes occur, has a high rate of violence against women. Italy had a shockingly high femicide rate, which means killing of women and girls. We brought the UN Special Rapporteur on Violence Against Women. We had lots of publicity on this, and it ended up that the law was passed. But countries don't want to appear that they have problems.
Right, right.
And so the United States can have verbal sanctions, other types of enforcement on human rights issues. But then it will be looked at, well, excuse me, but why does the United States have such a high rate of violence against women, high rate of trafficking, of many issues on women and girls that are challenging? And so really the work that we do as the Women's UN Report Network is to provide the women are out in the field with resources that they can use in order to assert leverage and advocacy on the ground in their own country. The most powerful UN document that exists for women is called CEDAW. It's a Convention on the Elimination of Discrimination Against Women. And any country that signs on to it, and most countries in the world have, but not the United States.
That has just puzzled me. We only have a few minutes left, but in a couple sentences, do you understand why we have not signed on?
There are political feelings about that. And also the religious lobby is very strong. And that also affected the Equal Rights Amendment. What I feel would make a difference is to get a strong coalition from both parties to work and commit to passing CEDAW in the United States. It can't be just NGOs. It can't be just women's programs. It takes a multi-sectoral, committed, continuous lobbying effort.
Are there any leaders in our country that are possible people to take this and run with it?
They're always changing. And it's a highly divisive issue. And one has to look at what amount of money is spent on lobbying, not just in the United States, but in any country. I always say if you're looking at something like hunger, water, sanitation, look at the power. Follow the money. And it's the power in government, in UN, in the private sector now, international financial institutions. Follow the forces, and you will have to look harder to find a lot of women.
Well, in terms of what Minnesotans, what people in the Midwest where the show may be seen can do, what would you say? Subscribe to your...
I would encourage them and invite them to be on our list. You could go on and then maybe you'll say enough already, or you can follow the archives. We have archives of all our releases. And so they can look at those and say, is this meaningful to me? Or they can use the search organ. But also to look at what matters in Minnesota. There's been some very fine work against trafficking in this state. Use as an example for other states to emulate, even other countries. And so we learn from each other. We as women bond on the very issues you pointed out today.
And good men.
And good men, absolutely.
Yes.
In my personal view, as having spent quite a few years in the women's movement, I believe that no positive social change and human rights will come without women, girls, men, and boys. We are the human family.
We have to join together, don't we? Absolutely. We're going to put on the screen now, Lois, two important sources here for you to go to so you can learn more about Lois's wonderful work. The first one is the Women's UN Report Network.com. And the second one is an email address, info@WUNRN.com. So either one of those will get people
Connected
into your system.
Yes, indeed.
And learning and able then to be supportive in various ways.
Also on our website, we have social media. So if they want to go to Facebook or
and
Twitter
share the
or
information.
LinkedIn. But I really want to thank the huge audience that sends information to WUNRN, and then we process it. Also the UN reports. You can't sit and read a 30-page report in your work or in your life often, but we will pull out the gender, put it up front, and that will either encourage people to save it or to read further, but they will see if women and girls are addressed in that document.
That is, that's a great service you're providing, the summing up, but also just the many, many, many horrible examples from around the world that we need to know about so we can start
But also the good
talking,
examples.
doing, and the good examples.
Yes,
absolutely.
Because I'm amazed at the resilience of the women, as an example, who are internally displaced and refugees, how they have to run with only their children and what's on their back. But they continue to survive as best they can because they are the centrifugal force of the family.
So the power of resilience. Thank you so much for coming over and sharing your important work. Good luck to you.
Thank you, Mary.
Thank you for being with us. I'll be back again next week. Until then, check out the WUNRN and also join us next week. Thanks. Good night.